Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reservations. We're your hosts. I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Jeremy Blair.
And, man, this is only episode 3, and I'm feeling good about this season.
I think we're getting the hang of it, right? I mean, I'm hoping we're framed correctly.
Yeah.
And I just put my arm over here, and I told myself I wasn't going to do that for now because my hand's going to disappear.
So like we mentioned last week, everyone, we're still working on this.
Right.
This is new for us. I mean, I have edited videos before, but I mean, nothing to this scale.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we kind of know what we're doing, so I don't have to do much editing, but we're still playing with things, so you may see things change, see things pop up. Also, I meant to mention this to you when you came over. Thank you to everyone who subscribed. We've had 8 new subscribers.
Wow.
So I made this channel for me to, I guess, have an outlet to do things. And then when we decided we were going to start putting the podcast on it, I just rebranded everything. So I already had 5 subscribers.
Nice.
So now it's gone up by 8. And,
wow.
I just want to say thank you. I mean...
Yeah, that's a big deal. Hey, 8.
I mean...
And we're all going to read your name off right now in order.
Here we go. I'm just going to have a robotic voice over this. But seriously, YouTube's a big place, but still, thank you guys. And thank you for the views, too. I mean...
it's racking up one of them is me. But...
one of them is me, too.
One of the subscribers.
Yeah.
But it's still a huge deal. Thanks, guys, for watching. And again, if you want to hear the music we use, still listen to the audio. Or, if it's a really big deal for the episode, like next week will be, I'll just tell you what the song is, and you can just go YouTube it or go ahead and find the audio on our podcast and, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever.
Yes,
and,
because...
we'll do it that way.
I don't know if our YouTube subscribers listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but you'll notice that there's different music. We have royalty-free music for YouTube, but we get to use the music for the audio, and that's because YouTube's... even though we're not making any money off of this, YouTube still has a lot of copyright infringement. So even though we're not getting paid to talk about these movies... we still don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble.
Now, on the other hand, audio is completely different. We're allowed to do that. But on YouTube, we can't. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, if I think or if you think the music we're using is integral to what we're talking about or anything like that, we'll just give a shout out to the music, and we may even put a link somewhere or something.
A quick little image somewhere.
Yeah, of where you can find it or whatever. And like I said, next week will probably be that way. Spoiler alert. I know I haven't told you what next week is, but
I know.
Spoiler alert for next week. All right, but let's get down to this thing, man.
So, Jeremy, this movie, did it, when you first when you first see it,
yeah.
When you first saw it, did you ever think man, am I secretly in a TV show?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Because I'm not going to lie, for a good while in my young life, I was I think I'm...
This film was very existential, right? It makes you think in a broader sense and in a unique sense about reality and your place in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
There is such a thing as the Truman Show delusion.
Mm-hmm. I was reading that yesterday.
Yeah, I wrote their names down. Ian and Joel Gold coined the phrase in 2008.
Oh, wow.
It is not recognized by the DSM-5. It's not a legitimate diagnosis. Right?
Okay.
But they saw enough patients, either with schizophrenia or some other disorder, exhibit these sort of delusions, this sort of way of thinking that they are being constantly watched and their life is being manipulated in some way, which is interesting, right? And I can see how people can get themselves wrapped up into this way of thinking. Because it's hard to prove it's not happening, right? Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where it's like, well, that guy's in on it, this guy's in on it, everyone's in on it. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to say no, they're not, right?
Yeah. Well, and and everyone will get to there, but I had a feeling we'd talk about this. The human mind is so crazy. Our minds, our brains are so weird, and some people's are wired and they think this is truth. Mm-hmm. To where people whose brains aren't wired that way, you're like, well, obviously not. Why would you think that? It's just so crazy, and and it doesn't help that this movie also is a very meta in a way,
Yeah, I really like the way it's played out. I guess we can start there.
So, in case you didn't watch or listen last week,
or can see the poster in between us.
Yes, we were discussing the Truman Show, 1994, 5. 4?
Sure.
We'll have our intern Reggie fact check that.
Yeah.
He's in the closet.
Yeah.
Not that closet. He's just in the closet next to us, listening. Anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's just so. So this is the first time I've rewatched this movie in quite a while. I love this movie, but hadn't seen it in a while. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, this movie is very meta. It's a movie about a TV show about someone's life being manipulated, but just a lot of the references that they're making is almost like jabs at Hollywood itself,
It kind of this movie wasn't originally written to be this lighthearted. It was supposed to be a little darker, right?
Yeah, I read somewhere that was also meant to be a little bit more sci-fi.
Yeah, it was set in New York. And it was darker, and not only in subject matter, but in lighting and in tone. I mean, it's supposed to be, mm-hmm. almost like Dark City, I guess.
Okay.
Which is a great movie, and it definitely a future episode.
Reference our Crow episode if you want to hear Jeremy talk more about Dark City.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did, because it's that guy. So it was supposed to be a lot darker, right? And so making it this sort of lighthearted and a different type of surreal in this town that they're in, mm-hmm. Which is a real town in Florida, by the way.
Not the name, though, right?
No, the name is different, but the town is in existence.
That's cool.
And it actually looks like that. When they went to go there, they were like, did someone build this? Like, is this a set? And they go, no, people live here. So it's very strange. It's a very eerie place to be. For me, it would be just because of how it's laid out and how it looks, but that doesn't matter.
Well, it kind of, I'm glad you mentioned eerie, because it kind of makes me think of Suburbs. Okay. Suburbs are, I think, very inherently creepy.
I think that just might be, I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and he's sort of ruined Suburbia. He's ruined Suburbia for me, because
for me, the movie The Burbs ruined Suburbia for me.
Right on.
But still, yeah. Because the town is, apart from the fact that everyone in this town is fake, but just looking at the town as itself, yeah, it's very creepy.
It is, and again, it's a real place.
That everything, white picket fence, everything is almost identical.
Yeah, again, it's very bright. Of course, that's, camera manipulation and whatever. That's right. But it was the guy who wrote Gattaca.
Okay.
Andrew Nichol,
wow.
right. And so, obviously, that would have been pretty sweet. I wouldn't have minded seeing the darker version of this movie, because I love Gattaca. And
that's the one with Ethan Hawke, right? It's been a while since I've seen that one.
And Uma Thurman.
Yeah, right. Where he's got to exfoliate with rocks all the time.
Yes, and he's got...
Sorry.
Right. You know what? Gattaca's a future episode also, so we'll get there eventually.
Moving on. Okay.
So, he wanted it to be the sort of more sci-fi, mm-hmm. right? And when Peter Weir was attached, he loved the script so much, but he's like, it can't work this way. We have to do it this other way. We need to tweak things and make things less I guess, less depressing, or where it's less sci-fi will make it, more of a surrealist sort of a place to live, right?
Right.
And I think it'll work better that, it's a happy place, right? And I agree. I agree that it's more appealing because it's a happy place, and you don't feel, you feel terrible for Truman, but
you don't have like this sense of
you're
dread.
not scared for Truman.
Right.
You just feel bad for Truman.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I do appreciate that switch because, the whole movie, we're feeling bad for Truman that his whole life has pretty much been a lie. Well, not pretty much. His life has been
a lie.
Yeah. But this is something else about this movie that I really love is that this movie has a genuine catharsis to it.
Yeah.
The ending is perfect. We have our closure for everyone.
It's maybe the most incredible ending I've seen in a movie like this. Obviously, for me, last week's episode, Requiem,
does not have a cathartic ending.
No, but I like it, right?
Well, yeah.
It's one of those endings that I constantly think about. It's one of those that will stick with me forever. This one is like that, but on the opposite, emotional spectrum, right?
Right. Where Requiem, you're just down in the dumps, just but I like it. This one, you're filled with hope.
Right.
And you're like, yes, Truman's out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, exhilarating. It's, it's a victory, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we'll get to that ending because that ending is...
I want to talk for 8 hours about that.
Okay,
ending.
great. I think we have time.
Okay, cool. Stick around.
So, again, Peter Weir is known for... I wouldn't necessarily say, uplifting films, but because he has Witness and he has a few others, but Dead Poet Society is one of his, right?
Okay.
And so, which also makes sense why he was able to channel Jim Carrey for this role, right? He was able to work with him enough and give him slack when he needed it, but also be like, trust him that he can do the dramatic stuff.
Well, and I read that he was really, really worried when Jim came on. He was really worried that he was going to have to, really kind of reel Jim in. Because I want to say Jim had at least done The Mask or Ace Ventura by this point.
He had done Ace Ventura. That's how
we got this movie.
That's how I got the movie.
Yeah, so he'd done Ace Ventura. In Living Color.
Mm-hmm.
His
stand up.
Yeah. So, this was Jim's first take on drama, and so I read that Peter was really, really worried. But as they began to film, and he saw what Jim could do, what you were saying, he was like, you know what, I can trust him.
Yeah, trusting him to not only bring in the humor that's in the film, added in, of course.
Yeah, right.
But also, when he's sitting with what's his best friend's name? I don't know. Marlon. When he's sitting with Marlon and they're having these talks and he's really down and he can sell it and play it and it's perfect, right? I really loved the fake opening credits.
Yeah.
Because it's introducing us to this world very quickly, acclimating us to the story and to the world that we're about to be in, and then later on we get the Christoph interview, and when Sylvia calls him, right, in that Christoph interview, and it's giving us this exposition, but it's not spoon feeding, right?
Right.
It's not
you hate.
Treating us like we're idiots. This is stuff we need to know,
right?
But it's also done in a way that's useful to the plot.
Yeah, because here we are in this world. The Truman Show has been on for 30 seasons, I believe, is what they say.
10,909 days. It ends on 10,912.
Yeah, well, I feel like at one point they say like the 30th season
because he he was a couple of days away from his 30th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you did the math, 10,909 is a few days shy of 30 years.
Okay. But yeah, so, but there's a lot of information that we don't know.
Right.
And this is where I kind of meant how the film is very meta, too, because they give us, that they do spoon feed us, but because we need it, with the flashbacks and...
Which I thought was really creative. It was like, well, what do they do if he's just sitting there thinking about something? They know him so well that they can guess what he's thinking about, but how would they do it? And they just play an old footage, right?
Old episode, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
And it's genius. I thought that was great.
This is... I would say this is reality show, reality TV.
It's the Joe Schmo show.
Yeah.
It's... which my dad loves. Shout out to my dad. The Joe Schmo show. I don't know if you've heard of that or know what it is.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever seen an episode, though.
It was a, quote, reality show, sort of like The Real World, but it was all scripted except for one guy. They would invite this one guy to be on this show that he thought it was going to be like a reality show. Uh-huh. But everybody else was an actor. It was all set up beforehand. And at the end of the episode, he gets... at the end of the season... he gets like $10,000, something like that. Like,
really?
Yeah, for playing along and, not suing them.
Not losing his mind.
Yeah. And so that's basically what this is, right? Except in a more wholesome, just played for, I don't know, let's take a look at this person's entire life, right? Mm-hmm. Sort of a deal. It's not meant to be manipulative for comedy. Yeah. The only manipulations is to keep him there, really.
Yeah.
And to have him not question his reality, which of course they fail in both. Mm-hmm. And let's go ahead and let's talk about the set. Let's talk about the world they've created.
The dome.
The dome, right?
That they planted right behind Hollywood. The Hollywood sign.
There are little details in there that are brilliant that you wouldn't really catch the first time. Uh-huh. When he's in his kitchen on the counter, there's vitamin D supplements. There's no sunlight. That's not a real sun. And so they have to take vitamin D so they don't have a vitamin deficiency. Yeah. And it's one of those that you wouldn't really think about. And I think that's so brilliant to just put a bottle right there that says vitamin D. And, it's because they don't have access to sunlight.
Yeah. See, I read that trivia on IMDb, and it didn't click with me. I was like, because I guess whoever wrote that bit of trivia, because, users can submit their own trivia. I was like, what? Yeah. What about the sun?
It's genius.
Yeah. This is why I'm glad we do this.
Yeah.
Because I know you will probably say what I'm thinking, but...
It's a genius piece of set design that gives you exposition, right?
Well, and speaking of the set, I love that in the main part, in the control room of the dome, Christoph has that smaller scale of it.
Yep.
To where we can really see the scope of...
Right, of how big this place is.
Yeah. Because, we have that zoom out where you can see it from space, and...
Yeah.
That CGI is not that good, but it's okay. It gets a pass.
Yep.
But, I feel like the model really shows us its scope. Like, This is how big this world is.
The sheer size of it. And he said there's about 5,000 cameras. I don't remember how many extras. Just to fill the space, fill the world.
Yeah, and then they had, I think he said like the size of a country of a team.
Right.
That's running all the inside of...
Well, you can think about just the idea of having to prepare for any scenario, right? Mm-hmm. You can only push him to this pattern so long to where if he deviates, you have to be ready for it, right? For anything. And so it's reading a lot into this film, right? Because they do mention, how hard it is to whatever, and but it's let's think a little outside the box, and let's think about the reality of the situation and what would need to happen or what the thought process would need to be to even pull this off. It is possible to pull this off. They made sure that, things represented in the film were based in reality. Like, these aren't outlandish ideas, right? Yeah. And so, for instance, giving him the phobia, right, is genius, and also morally reprehensible.
Absolutely.
Right.
I was thinking about that, especially in the part, where during Christoph's interview where he says, we had to find ways to keep him in, so like making him afraid of dogs, and then of course water is the big one. I really was sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, wow, like let's say like Truman never found his way out and this show ended. And again, this is really going back to us looking way too deep into this.
Yeah.
But let's just say like Truman never found out and the show eventually just ended. Like, here's a man who you've literally like taken away like the ability to even drive over water.
Right.
Like, he's that afraid of open water.
Right.
And it's just, I was just like, man, he'd be screwed in real life. But I think in the ending, he overcomes that.
Right.
But
of course, and of course, that's Christoph's fault for bringing his dad back. Right. Mm-hmm. Once his dad's back, the fear sort of subsides, and so really, it's Christoph who inadvertently ended his own show. Right. Mm-hmm. Obviously not on purpose, but he set things into motion that would eventually have Truman building the courage to leave.
Right.
Right. And I have such a hard time with Laura Linney. I am not a huge Laura Linney fan. I think she's great in this.
She is great.
She's fantastic. She is also one of these manipulations because when Truman sees Sylvia, and I don't remember her stage name,
Laura, something with an L.
Something like that. When he sees her for the first time in that flashback. In the rerun, they purposely
have Meryl
fall onto him, and we get that meet cute, right?
But Truman's not really like that into it, you can tell.
Right, and it's this, this is when we really start to feel horrible for Truman, because his entire life has been just one big manipulation, right? And it's horrible, number one, right? But it's, I don't know, it's so strange to even think about this, in a reality sense, right? Because again, it's that Truman Show delusion where it's like, anything that happens to you, you can argue is a manipulation of some sort, right? And your whole life has been manipulated by all these things. And so, again, going back to our previous conversation, it's hard to debunk that, or it's hard to cure someone of that delusion, right? Because it's so hard to
convince them otherwise.
To prove it.
Right.
Prove it's not happening, right?
And I was just thinking, too, Hollywood does a lot to suspend our disbelief. And they pretty much had to do this for Truman for 30 years. Which is
amazing, right? I don't know how old Jim Carrey was at the time.
He was in his 30s. Okay. One of the bits I read is that originally Truman was supposed to be much more angsty. Okay. But because Jim was in his 30s, they decided to alter it to almost like a midlife crisis.
Right. And he's so wholesome and...
Yeah. Truman Burbank, which, I mean, even though that was a made-up last name...
well, it's a made-up name. All names are made up, but I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean, what name is Jeremy?
Right.
Or Rain?
Trust me, I get that question all the time.
But, despite all this, Truman is very wholesome. He is very likable. And it's... I think it goes back to, you just feel sorry for him. Because here it is, this guy, he's pretty much a a walking fool, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, unwittingly, you know, he doesn't know.
He doesn't mean to. And you know what's so interesting is I wrote down why now, right? Why does he figure it out now, right? And I think it's after, you know, I wrote it down very early into watching the movie. Because I really never thought about it. I never thought about, you know, what makes now so different.
I was thinking about that too while I was rewatching it.
And I think a lot of it is, you know, just he's so exhausted, right? Of just being told what to do all the time, I think. And, you know, I think he's starting to feel the pressure of this manipulation, actually, right? He's starting to notice things, and he's remembering back to what Sylvia said, and that light fixture fell from the sky. And
you know, and that almost kind of kicks it off a little bit.
Yeah, and the radio is starting to follow where I'm going, right? It's sort of the age and the sort of, what's the word? It's the set is now starting to age so much that now they're making mistakes, right?
Like when he tries to go in the elevator.
Right, exactly.
And we see people having, you know, it's like a crafts table.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well.
Again, it's this sort of, I don't know, it's sort of like the fall of the House of Usher. It's starting to age so much that it's falling apart. And that, I guess, if you want to read into it, maybe they just never really thought about it, right? They never anticipated this would be a problem. And you wonder if some things like this have happened before. And they mentioned the people sneaking on a set before, right? And trying to tell him he's on television.
Which I don't understand because it's a dome. So, like, how did that, like, parasailer come in?
Well, I'm sure maybe he climbed up the dome, right?
God.
Which is why he had a parachute. And that other guy in the Christmas present, which was funny. And I think, you know, like where Sylvia is our morality, right? She represents the morality of the film.
Why this is wrong.
This is wrong, right? The other people, especially the guy on the parachute, also seemed like, you know, because it says you're on TV, right? They're trying to save him also, kind of. Yeah. Right? Whether or not for their own fame or whatever, 15 minutes, just to say, I'm the one who
saved Truman Burbank.
Who either saved Truman Burbank or canceled a 30-year-old television show.
Well, you know, and I have things about that too, but we'll get into it because that kind of ties into what we want to talk about with the ending.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, and it's almost like, even with all these things happening with the light fixture and everything, they know how to combat it.
Right. It's going back to, you have to think 15 steps ahead, or 15 different directions at the same time. You know,
like when he's doing donuts and he goes down that street and almost synchronized, all the cars come out.
Yeah.
And then like when he follows Meryl to work, and they have to preform surgery. Yeah. But just, you know, do enough trickery to make him think it's actually happening and then stop.
Right. And I, you know, again, thinking too much into this movie, which this movie's very good at.
Yes.
It's almost made for you to just sit and think about all of the things in it. Is why did they even introduce the idea of television to him? Right? You know, because he's watching TV, he's watching I Love Lucy. Why? You know? And why even tell him about Mount Rushmore? What does it matter? Right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, and again, that scene is probably the only time I really kind of have a problem in this movie.
When they're looking through the photo album?
Is why would he even think that's weird? Right? What does he know? You know, he doesn't have any frame of reference on what it's supposed to look like.
Right? Unless, and again, we keep saying it, but maybe it's because we are reading way too much into this. Right. Maybe they got like real school books.
Oh, maybe. Oh, that is fascinating.
And so in his head, he knows what Mount Rushmore is supposed to look like.
That's a fascinating insight.
Because remember, he says, a lot smaller than I thought it was.
Right.
And then he, but as he's trying to kind of look back, is when his mom's like, oh, the wedding, oh.
Right. And so it's fun to think about, like, what would you have done to keep him there or to have him not question his reality so much? One of those things for me would have been television. What does it matter? He's not missing it,
Right.
Is to have that in there. It seems unnecessary and risky to have a television in there. And I know they obviously control what's on television. But we see that with the guy who is trying to get him to realize staying at home is a good thing by introducing this fake classic Hollywood film about, the dangers of leaving home.
It's kind of like the
newspapers also, which are fantastic.
Oh yeah, like gangs in the streets or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do a lot to try to keep him home. But I think the big thing that I have a problem with is how, I'm assuming the actress who plays Meryl, Laura Linney, I guess when she's fed up with it because she feels like he's become unhinged, it's like, but no one else has a problem still lying to him, like with Marlon, with the aftermath of the fight. It's, I don't know, to me that, like the whole time I was watching it last night, it was like that, like Kristoff is feeding him lines about, I'd never lie to you. Like, that would mean I'm a part of it too. And it's like, you asshole, you are a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, it's this horrible trick they're playing on him. I mean, but, not really maliciously. It's not like they're leading up to a gotcha, right? They never want him to figure it out. And, it's sort of a philosophical question with what's the difference between where he's living and where I'm living, right?
Which, Kristoff kind of talks about.
Exactly.
With Sylvia, like the world you're living in is the world full of lies. I've created a safe world for him.
Yeah.
And, and I want to talk about Kristoff really quickly.
Of course. We can talk hours about Kristoff. I have a lot to say about Kristoff.
Because, sorry, everyone. Because firstly, Ed Harris is amazing.
Yeah, he is. Not originally Kristoff. It was Dennis Hopper. And they filmed for one day. And Dennis Hopper said, bye.
Really?
Yeah.
Like Dennis Hopper just wasn't feeling it?
I guess they didn't really go into details. He just left.
So it was almost like an Eric Stoltz Back to the Future kind of thing?
Kind of.
Except for the fact they had almost completed the movie with Eric Stoltz.
Yeah, they just filmed one day with Dennis Hopper and he was like, see you later.
But I'm glad they went with Ed Harris.
Ed Harris is fantastic, yeah. I'm a huge fan.
I read that him and Jim never met during filming.
Never met. Isn't that so cool to think about? Which makes perfect sense because they never shared... They were never in the same place at the same time.
Well, technically they were, but never like us. With the scene where Truman's sleeping and he's kind of stroking him.
Right. Well, that's what I meant.
But no, they're not physically in the same
space. Right.
But anyway, so Kristoff... Dude, I could talk. I think I almost feel like he's supposed to embody the avant-garde artist who's like, this is art, because he wears a beret,
Oh, is that the only reason why you think that?
Yeah, on his glasses.
Glasses, I was about to say.
And of course, his name is
Kristoff,
but technically, they're really emphasizing the Christ of Kristoff.
Right, he is a god figure, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost the lesson that we get at the end of Frankenstein, right? It's this playing God thing that you shouldn't do, right?
Yeah, and he almost has a father thing with Truman. Like he really, he genuinely feels a sense of connection with Truman. Like when he's telling Sylvia, I've created a safe...
I think it would be impossible for him not to, only because... Like Kristoff says to him at the very end, he was there for all of it.
Yeah.
Right? And in reality, Ed Harris is only 12 years older than
Jim Carrey. Well, and I really thought about that. Really, there's another thing I guess I'm thinking too much into, but during all that, I was like, man, that means he was probably, 20 years old when they started this project.
I kind of wish that they would have implied Ed Harris's plan for when he dies. When Christoph dies, who's going to take over? I thought about that a lot too, because the intention is cradle to grave, and obviously at one point they were thinking the grave was coming sooner rather than later. But if things had gone the way they had anticipated it to, who's going to take over, right?
I would have said Paul Giamatti.
Okay.
I really felt like Paul was his right-hand man, especially in the scene where, Truman, one of the great improvised scenes that Jim, is drawing with the soap.
It's fantastic.
Does Paul Giamatti even have a name?
I have no idea.
So we'll just keep calling him Paul Giamatti. He immediately jumps to, I gotta call Christoph. Yeah. So I really feel like he may have been the second.
Okay.
So I think if things would have gone the way that were planned, Paul Giamatti would have taken over and run the show.
To be able to have these characters, and especially Christoph, to have these guys seem three-dimensional, Peter Weir wrote backstories, and Christoph's is really fascinating. So they had written that before he had done The Truman Show, he had won an Academy Award for a film about homeless people where he had filmed it in a similar way. Right? And his original intention was just to film an entire year of a baby's life. Right? And then people started really
taking attention.
Right. Taking notice. And then he was, well, what if we added a dad? Right? And he can just have like this other space in the house. And okay, well, what if we did another year? Okay, I have an idea.
And that just snowballed into the Truman.
What if it's his entire... And so he even wrote down the intentions and how it led to this and how it led to this to lead to the Truman Show. It's amazing.
That would have been really interesting to see. I mean, they kind of imply it when, he's doing the interview and he says, well, we only started with one camera.
Right.
And, we see Truman in the womb, But that would have been really interesting to see
I would love an entire movie about Christoph.
The conception of the Truman Show.
I think Christoph is an unbelievably interesting character just because of the man who pulled this thing off, right? And who would a person have to be for that to happen, right?
Right.
Which is an interesting thing to think about, and I would love to see it explored.
Well, I mean, Ed Harris is still acting strong, man. I'm sure you'd be down.
They did mention in the backstory that the intention is for the show to always keep going after Truman dies because they were expecting him to have a child.
Oh, yeah.
And that child would be the next one, right? And so it would never really end, right? Which is horrifying to think about.
It kind of is, yeah.
Right? Because, it's an entire family, generation after generation, that being filmed and being manipulated, right?
It's not... Like, when you really strip away all the bits, you're like, wow, this is horrible.
It is. Yeah, it is horrible. Horrifying.
But man, Jim Carrey kills it.
He does.
I know he's done more dramatic roles since this.
Right, but this is the first one. And in the special features, they could not stop talking about how much he surprised them, right? The other actors and the producers and the director, they were like, he knocked it. We just couldn't believe it, because all they've seen is The Mask and Ace Ventura, right?
Yeah.
Or In Living Color. They hadn't, seen him do anything else.
Yeah, they hadn't seen the other side of Jim. See, learning more about him. I'm sorry if everyone just heard that. I think that was my phone vibrating on the tripod.
What was that? Oh.
I apologize, everyone.
Oops. We didn't really think about that.
My watch didn't go off. Sorry, hang on. Let me see if it's like... if someone texts me. Yeah, it was...
Sorry about that, guys.
Wait, was that from an hour ago? Hang on. Sorry.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was from an hour ago, so I don't know why my phone just vibrated.
Okay, sorry about that,
anyway, sorry. Okay, so learning more about Jim, and like, you know, who he really is in the documentary Jim and Andy when he was doing Man on the Moon, which is, you know, a different dramatic role for him.
Also starring Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, also starring Paul Giamatti. Potentially a future episode. I would love to talk about Man on the Moon. But anyway, you know, I think Jim, and I feel like we mentioned it a while back, I think Jim has this capacity to do dramatic roles, you know, and, you know, at this point, as we've been saying, no one had ever seen it. And so I'm glad that they were so shocked that he could do it, and not only do it, but do it well.
Pleasantly surprised. And I think why Jim Carrey is able to continue to step into a dramatic role every now and then, I think is a testament to Peter Weir. I think that because he has worked with Robin Williams before, that, you know, he was able to, you know, I'm not saying he's the comedian whisperer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he is showing these outrageous comedians that you can relax and you are able to play these dramatic roles, right? You're able to step out of your comfort zone and do this.
Right. Well, yeah, Jim is just, he's phenomenal. You know, I think the only time we see Ace Ventura Jim
is when he's doing the donuts.
Is when he's doing the donuts. He's like, ah!
Right, and his tongue is hanging out and he's shaking his head all over the place. But
the other 95% of the movie, he's very serious. He's, you know, I refer to it as just the Stanley Ipkiss.
Okay.
Because in The Mask, Stanley Ipkiss is the straight man.
Right.
So he's very serious. He's very wholesome. And then when he becomes The Mask is when he becomes the Jim Carrey we know and love.
Right.
But, you know, this is him being Stanley Ipkiss the whole movie.
Right.
And then all the way to the end. Even the end of the movie, he's...
Yeah, I would say that there's every once in a while he'll do something sort of quirky, you know, and you would assume improvised.
Oh yeah, like with the drawing the soap,
which is so he says he does that in his personal life, like he does that in his mirror.
That's awesome.
You
know? And I know there's some takes where he was doing different things, like he drew like a dress and like hair.
Yeah.
But I like that they left in the astronaut helmet. That I love that.
That one is great, and I'm always so impressed of his flag.
Oh,
it looks really good.
That he nailed it because it's a big bar of soap.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he got it to a point where he could...
Yeah, and then the little T on it is perfect.
Tremania.
But I was always, and still am, very impressed by how that flag looks.
Oh, yeah. And it's just... And I feel in that scene especially, even though it was improvised, it sums up Truman's life perfectly.
I agree. I think that it's, you know, explaining his intentions, right? He wants to get out. He wants to explore, right? He wants to get out of it. He's, you know, quirky and funny. He's wholesome. He's sweet. Not afraid to look like an idiot by, you know, making, you know, right? Doing all these voices and shit. It's wonderful. He's wonderful, and this movie is wonderful. Right?
Oh yeah, you know, and Jim really holds this movie all together. I mean, of course, obviously, being the leading man, he has to, but, you know, first outing in a dramatic role, and he holds it all together. And he, you know, he's truly the heart and soul of the movie.
Right.
You know, sometimes some actors are the heart and the other actors are the soul, but he's the heart and the soul of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, just take a look at his face.
Yeah.
Right? I assume we're using the one I sent you, right?
Yeah, I think I have that one downloaded.
Great. So look at his face, and all the other little faces.
You know, so which kind of brings me to the point, even though I know we're not done talking, but at the point of, you know, it's almost like people want to almost save him, you know. So in the finale, in the end, when he chooses, you know, free will, I'm going to leave, no one is upset that the show that they've been watching for 30 years is ending. They're happy
that
he's gonna get out.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I was thinking about this last night. In that, I always like to imagine fun little like spin-offs or sequels or stuff, and just think about what that would be like. And Christoph's, what he would do after this, I was thinking about that, and then I started thinking, I was like, well, would we have to, in modern day thinking, would we have to assume this would be brought up like in a sort of cancel culture way that, well, you manipulated this person's life for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But then I started thinking about, well, no, because people would watch and loved it, right? So, I mean, you know, it's sort of like you don't... you kind of want to blame the audience also. Yeah. Because it's not like they were, you know, just standing idly by and be like, oh, he shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, and, you know, as he says, when they have that graphic up, we've gotten more views on this graphic than we've ever gotten.
Right. Which is horrible.
Yeah.
But also, like, I loved the cuts to the people watching the show. Mm-hmm. Number one, I love that we don't get a lot of... they're not wide shots, right? We don't really see the environment they're in. We're just focused on the people themselves watching the show, which I really like. Even Sylvia, I love that we can't see her apartment, really. There was one wide shot when she's on the phone.
Yeah, it's like a tracking shot.
It's so we can see, you know, her...
really pushing, like...
her propaganda posters also, like, Save Truman, he's in jail, blah, blah, all that stuff. But everybody else, it's really just a 2-shot close-up.
Yeah, like the guy in the bathtub.
I really like the guy in the bathtub.
Especially when he's... When Truman...
he's holding onto the curtain.
He's like, hold on! Yeah, that shit cracks me up. And then... and he pretty much ruins his TV when he's excited that Truman's getting out. He's like, he's leaving! And he's splashing, and I'm like, God, dude, you just ruined your TV.
And again, it's sort of, you know... it's sort of strange to see them so excited he's leaving, because it's like, well,
now your show is over.
Right, don't you guys love this show, you know?
And I think it goes back to, I think they just love Truman.
Right, they have all fallen in love with Truman.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the show per se, it's Truman, you know, and of course the ending is kind of, the ending is I was like, damn, that's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah, it is.
Because now that they know the show is over, the 2 security guards are like, all right, let's see what's on next.
What else is on? You got the remote?
Because now it's time, we got to find the next, especially now.
And going back to the expositional part of this film, where they're explaining to you things, I think it's kind of like a radio show. It's sort of, if you're just now joining us, here's what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to do that every so often, every 15 minutes or whatever,
right.
You know, recap. And I think that's, you know, this show is like CNN, right? It's on all day long, 24 hours a day.
24/7, yeah.
And so if someone were to click on it, a brand new viewer were to click on it, they need to know what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that, sorry, I didn't mean to, you know, just jump right into this again, but I think that sort of, to me, forgives the exposition, because again, it's like, just to recap, here's what's going on, right? If you're just now joining us, welcome, here's Truman, here's what we've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah, you know, and what's so crazy is then you have Christoph, who's got more episodes planned, like Meryl will be leaving him in the upcoming episode, and we're going to introduce a new romantic...
There is no way he would have given that much of a spoiler alert in an interview. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, but then at the same time, this show has been captivating people for 30 years.
That's true.
He probably, at this point, he's like, you know, we'll tell you everything we've got planned. You know, because then he even says, like, I still want to get the first live conception on TV.
Yeah, I think at that point, you know, Christoph is now... in it for firsts, right? Mm-hmm. He has had all of this success and overwhelming success with this show, that now he's saying, how far can I go?
Right.
You know, can I get the first on-air conception? We have the first, you know, on-air birth, right? We have, or whatever. Or right. We've had this, we've had this.
Yeah, we've had his first steps.
Right. Can we get this? And what's next, right? Can we get that, right? And so he's going to have... also he's planning on having the first person be born on television and die on television, right? All without interruption.
Oh yeah.
And so I think Christoph is at that point riding pretty high.
Well, and I think it harkens back to what you were saying. It's a God complex too, you know, because when I was rewatching the scene where he's wanting to scare Truman to go back, you know, and Truman almost kind of calls him out. Is that the best you can do? You'll have to kill me. Because Truman knows I'm not going back. Either you kill me or I'm going forward. And almost like God in the Old Testament, you know, Christoph switches to very, very almost vengeful.
Yeah.
Where he tries to kill him and then finally realizes and backs off. You know, and I was like, almost like a parent would with a child, you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting... Again, these are interesting concepts. You know, what kind of person would Christoph be at this point, right? Obviously, he would have lots of hubris. He would probably be insufferable to be around just because of, you know, how much success he's had in this very specific type of success.
Well, and also I was just thinking, you know, if our theory would have been true, if Paul Giamatti would have taken over, he clearly doesn't have the same stomach that Christoph has, because when Christoph's like, crank it up, he's like, you're going to kill him. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You know, and I think that's, again, like how you were saying with Sylvia, Paul is giving us, the audience, here's your bit of morality.
Right. Here's a little bit more, right, if you needed it. Not everyone's a monster in this movie, I promise. Right?
Right.
And so I would go ahead and say that debunks your theory that Paul Giamatti, because there's no way after that Ed Harrison...
It would be like, yeah, no, you're not taking over.
Yeah, you're not taking over.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Right, you know, and again, they don't bring it up. You know what I mean? So this is just all
the show ends after that. Right. When the movie ends, the show's over.
This is all speculation, right?
Right.
It's almost, you know... Again, I like thinking about what would happen next, right? Sorry, guys. Would they try this with someone else, right? Or would this be a look into the ethics of what they've done? And I'm not saying lawsuits or anything crazy like that, but I'm saying that it might now be illegal for them to do this again, right? Or whatever. And so what would Christoph do after that? He would have to keep producing art, right? That's just the kind of person he is. What would he do next? And so it's just fun to think about stuff like that, you know. Much like, you know, learning about his whole backstory is just fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So, Jim, the ending.
The ending. So, again, this is him on the boat, right? He has finally conquered his fear of the ocean.
And almost, he's almost content.
He is. And he is just, once he's on the water, it's almost like he can relax. He's done it. He's escaped, right?
Which I'm glad it didn't show us how he did it.
Right.
But at the same time, I kind of was like, how did he do it, though? How did he know he could avoid all the cameras until...
He Shawshanked himself out of that house, which was really cool. Shout out to Shawshank.
Shout out Stephen King.
Yeah. Shout out Frank Darabont. Morgan Freeman. Okay, so anyway, so he Shawshanked his way out of there, right? And this is kind of where... the audience finds out just how this show is played from day to day. Because when Lewis Marlin looks into the camera, he gets in trouble for looking into the camera.
Don't look in the camera.
Which means this show is played like a sitcom. The show is not played... We know... It's so strange to think about because as an audience member, you're watching this like a soap opera. Right? Or, you know, like a sitcom or like a drama or whatever, right? To where the audience knows the deal, right? But it's not represented that way. It's represented as a drama, right? A scripted drama, which means they don't look in the camera. They don't, you know, reference that they're on a show and they're actors or whatever. It's played to be reality, right? And so when he looks into the camera and gets in trouble, you start going, oh, is that really how it goes? That's so interesting. You know, that's the show, right? It was interesting to me anyway.
Yeah, but so he's on the boat, he's on the water, and you know, as we just mentioned, Ed Harris activates the weather system to try to scare him to go back to shore. But like what you were saying with Kristoff bringing his dad back, that fear has subsided.
Right.
So even though things get rocky, Truman's like, I'm not giving up. I'm going forward.
Right, and again, he is so excited to leave. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care what happens to him now, as long as he doesn't have to go back. And so, Kristoff was foolish into thinking he could scare him into going back, I think. And also, in that scene, we get this very dark side of Kristoff by saying, well, I guess he's dying early then, you know, basically.
Yeah, because I guess the network executive, I can't think of that actor's name.
Oh, Philip Baker Hall.
Yes.
Love Philip Baker Hall. He was in our Magnolia episode. Shout out to Magnolia.
Yeah, but you know, he's like, cut, stop, and he's like, you're gonna kill him. I guess he's dying early.
Yeah, he's like, he was born on television. He can die on television, you know. And so it's sort of you assume early on that Kristoff really cares for Truman, but here it's like not as much as he cares about the television, or
right.
It cares about the show,
right?
Because he might already have a backup, right? You'd like to think, because if he's just so ready to kill him off, then he'll just bring in someone else, and that's not a problem, right? Which is scary.
Yeah, but then he almost kind of snaps out of it,
right?
You know, because he gets what he wanted. He will use, like, you know, capsize him, and he does capsize a little bit, but enough to where
he's fine,
you know. But then Kristoff kind of snaps out of it, and he's like, you know, shut it all down again.
And this is where we get one of the greatest shots in film history, in my opinion, is him hitting the wall. And I love the music stops when he hits the wall. Because we get this very triumphant orchestral score.
That he survived the storm.
Right. And then and it's a beautiful example of forced perspective where, you know, we think he has miles to go.
And then
the shadow ends up, and it's so fast that you notice the shadow and then he hits the wall, right? The shadow of the boat. And he hits the wall and everything stops. And we get this, which I love, that when we first see Jim Carrey, when we first see Truman touching the wall, we don't see his face. He is in his own grief on his own, right? This is him realizing the gigantic manipulation that is his life, and we don't really see his face until he
finally turns,
snaps, and he starts hitting the wall, and he's angry, right? And but I love the touching of the wall, and we only see his back, right?
But you know he's
right. He just cannot believe it, right?
And I would like to say that that's probably one of Jim's best scenes in the whole movie.
Guaranteed.
Because without speaking a word, you can tell he's upset even before we see his face.
Right. It's letting his body language do the work. And it's done in such a brilliant way that, you know, now we have stopped also using the studio cameras, I think.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, we're using just the regular...
We're using just, you know, the movie cameras instead of the studio cameras, right? Which we can do an oops, I forgot about the cameras. But when he is, you know, hitting the wall, and again, it's a new score, a new orchestral music cue, right? And then Kristoff wants to talk to him, and this is where we really let that God complex sink in, because it's from the sun, right, or from the sky that he's talking from.
Well, Truman thinks now he knows it's not the real sky.
Right. And, you know, that conversation that they have between one another is genius. I mean, this is a genius ending.
Oh, yeah. And I love the line that Jim says, you know, because Kristoff says, you know, I know what you're feeling. Well, you've never had a camera in your head.
Right. So
and
you don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just so, and I think that's the second moment where you really understand Truman's life. You know, you're like, wow, he hasn't actually lived a true life.
Right. And I love that they don't subject us, the audience, to Christoph explaining everything to him.
Like,
right?
oh, this is why I did it, Truman.
Or not only that, just like explaining the world that he's been living in. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we didn't have to do that, you know?
Yeah, just more so of like...
It was enough. It was enough to have him, one of my favorite shots is him opening the door.
And he's kind of like...
and he's just about to reach in, and that's when Christoph interrupts him and, starts talking to him.
With a very... I see this creepy, but very creepy, just kind of... Truman.
Right.
And then, but it was, loud enough for him to be like, what?
Right. Again, brilliant. And then, of course, we get that new music cue, and it's very hopeful and very, light.
And
right than the other ones.
And it's kind of a, and it's... I always see it as a great, like, middle finger moment, because Christoph is trying to convince him to stay. Stay in this world. I built this world for you. If you stay, I guess he's implying we can make it better.
Right.
And then, and Truman's not talking to him, almost like a defiant child. Mm-hmm. And, he's like, say something. You're on television. Say something. And instead of being, like, fuck you.
Yeah.
In case I don't see you. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And he takes his bow, which I love.
Yeah.
He takes his bow like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And he walks out, and
then Sylvia's been watching, and she runs downstairs, and you assume they're just going to meet up and finally be together.
And Truman gets to live a life.
We hope.
Right. Because then, as we mentioned, the show's now technically over, and now it's like, well, what else is on?
What else is on?
And the movie's over.
Right. Absolutely brilliant.
100%.
It's one of the best endings I've ever seen.
That's why I really wanted to talk about it, because like I said last week, it's a movie that, I think much, and I feel like I've talked to you about it, but in case I haven't, I feel like I'm about to piss you off. Much like Adam Sandler,
okay,
Jim is known primarily for comedy.
Okay.
Very, physical comedy. And, like, I read a review about Sonic the Hedgehog, and people are like, oh, it's a return to form for Jim Carrey. And I'm like, well, but you see, Jim can do so much more.
Oh, that's right. He's in that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I haven't seen it, and I forgot it was in it.
He's Eggman. And I'm going to be honest, and he's funny in it. And I wouldn't say it's a return to form. I think one of his funniest movies is... Liar Liar.
Okay.
I think it's great.
Yep.
It
is good. I really like Liar.
Of course, that's not to say I don't love math, but anyway, but like I was sitting, when I read that, I was like, but like, have you ever seen The Truman Show?
Right.
Because it's such a break for him, and so early in his career,
right?
Acting career, that is, that he shocked everyone. How he didn't win an Academy Award for this, I will never understand. I mean, like we've said before, the Academy is run by monsters, just like the MPAA.
Ugh, yeah.
But...
and I think my parents would be very upset if I didn't mention... also, The Majestic is also
I heard
a film. The reviews are horrendous.
I've heard film, critics hated it,
which is so interesting because there's really nothing wrong with it. I liked it as a kid. My parents really like it. It's a Frank Darabont film. This is after The Green Mile.
Oh wow!
And so Frank Darabont is starting to. Try to do something not Stephen King,
Yeah, right.
But again, it's this, very dramatic role for him. And this is less light and fluffy than this movie is.
Yeah,
The Majestic is sad,
Yeah.
But, I like The Majestic. And so...
like we've always said, too, critics really don't know what they're talking about sometimes.
I don't know. I need it. It's been so many years since I've seen The Majestic. So
yeah, it may be a situation where you rewatch it and you hate it now.
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see.
But, again, like I said, that's really why I wanted to talk about this movie, because it's... out of all Jim's works, if I were to have to pick 2 movies of his that I would rewatch constantly, it would be probably Ace Ventura, because I can quote that movie line for line.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the Truman Show, because I feel like with every actor has sides. And I think Jim, he gets taken for granted. Like I said, I think people assume he's much like Adam Sandler, just with doing stupid comedies and things like that. And yes, Jim is very funny and he's a physical comedian, but man,
I think it just takes the right script and the right director, because Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love is fantastic.
It's on my Criterion wish list.
Right? So it's, I think it just takes the right finesse for these guys to, and they got to want to do it also. I mean,
and I agree with that too. I was watching a video about Adam Sandler. It was like a video of like actors who've redeemed themselves. And I think Adam was like out of 10 actors.
Not sure redemption's the right word. He's not like...
Well, it was Uncut Gems that they talked about.
That's interesting. I would think that he was also very good in Big Daddy, as like in a more down-to-earth role,
Yeah. Well, but anyway, I just love this movie. I think...
Yeah. I think without this ending, we definitely wouldn't be talking about it.
Oh, yeah. The ending, the last 30 minutes of the movie of them searching for Truman...
It's incredible.
Yeah, It's great, man. And I think people, yes, it's dramatic, but it's funny. I really like that it became a very lighthearted drama.
Yeah, instead of the dark
sci-fi
New York film, you're thinking Snake Plissken's going to pop out at any minute. Shout out to Kurt Russell.
We were just talking about Kurt Russell.
Yeah, we were. So I do like this lighthearted change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see what it would have been like if they had kept it the original, sort of Gattaca-esque sci-fi would have been kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, movie's awesome. We would recommend everyone go see it.
For sure. If you haven't watched it. I mean, if you haven't watched it, we wrote it for you. But
another thing, too, with now that we're on YouTube is, we can, tell you and like put it somewhere on the screen where you can go check the movie out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Of course, I dug deep, and the only place to find it, digitally at least, is you got to rent it or buy it from iTunes or Amazon or whoever you use.
I have it on my shelf at home, so that's where I watch it.
You can go physically buy it.
I have the Blu-ray, so.
So Jeremy,
yeah,
are you ready to wrap up?
I do. Let's do an Oops I Forgot real quick, because I completely forgot to talk about the amazing camera work.
Oh, yeah.
With the studio cameras. Like the one in the trash can.
And the buttons. And
right. The one in his car radio. The one in the pencil sharpener.
I forgot about the pencil sharpener.
His ring is a camera.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about in the trivia that his big black diamond ring is a camera. So they could use it if they needed it. Right. Yeah. It's just brilliant. The briefcase ones. And I like that they're sort of in awkward angles. They're not professionally done because these aren't professional cameramen. They're actors, wielding these cameras. And some of them are in weird places and, just to make sure you have total coverage.
So would you say that the birds in this world are cameras? Birds aren't real.
Yeah. What do you mean in that world? Birds aren't real. So they're government drones. So I don't know what you mean by in this Truman Show world. It's in general that they're not real, but that's fine.
But especially in the Truman Show.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think
you see any animals in this except for dogs.
That's true.
But I'm sure they figured out.
I also, an oops I forgot is since there's no sunlight, how does he mow his grass?
Yeah.
But I don't want to think about it that much. But
unless they have like a team that comes out there and is like go. Like,
that's a stupid nitpicky thing to say, but because it's who cares. Again, it's just fun to think about and have an analysis about this world he's living in, this dome.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all the oops I forgot I had.
Yeah, that's really it.
The camera placements were genius.
This movie's great. I really wish Ashley hadn't fallen asleep when I put it on because I really wanted her to watch it. But
has she never seen it?
I don't believe so.
I almost wanted to title this episode "Not Ed TV."
Not Ed TV.
Which came out after this one.
That's right, yeah, because,
with Woody Harrelson.
Yeah. Who did Ed TV?
I don't remember. I've never seen Ed TV. So.
Isn't it Richard Linklater?
There's no way Linklater did Ed TV. It's possible, though.
I'm going to say 75% certain.
It's possible it's Linklater.
So Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
Do I need to prepare myself for really. Another downer?
No, this isn't as This isn't as much of a downer as the other ones.
Okay.
I'm gonna be talking about the music a lot in this one because it's my favorite band. The National does the intro and outro songs to this film, and it was very heavily influenced. The tone of the film and the director had this song on while he was writing the script. He would just play it over and over and over again.
Okay.
It is Gavin O'Connor's Warrior. With Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. So
I've always wanted to see this.
It's brilliant. It is one of my favorite sports movies. You want to call it a sports movie?
Well, I mean, technically, it's about mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
But I know there's a deeper theme.
It's incredible. And the acting is incredible. Of course, Tom Hardy is amazing.
Yeah, Tom Hardy is... Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You've never seen him this shredded, by the way. Like, he was bigger in Batman.
Oh, that's... Well, because, he put on mass for Batman.
But this one, he's cut. I mean... And his traps, touching his earlobes. I mean...
Well, no, Bane was worse.
Bane, is touching his earlobes.
And he's like... I was born a donkey.
That's great.
Does he also got those cum gutters?
Wow.
I just said... cum gutters. I may bleep myself.
No, keep it in. I kind of like it. Yeah, he does.
Tight.
Guys, you're not prepared for how much you're going to love this movie if you have not seen it already.
Again, like I said, it always interested me because I know it's about these two brothers, and I love Joel Edgerton. I think he is a much like some other actors we mentioned on the show before. I can't think. I think he's very underrated. I think people take him for granted, especially with his range that he can do.
Yeah, and also his filmmaking. He's directed The Gift, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think one other one. So, I mean, he's
also in The Green Knight, which we will never get to see.
We'll never see The Green Knight. He was also fantastic in It Comes at Night, which was very good.
I would say another movie I think he's fantastic in, but you've told me numerous times you hate the movie, so I'm not going to say it.
Okay, great.
And embarrass myself in front of our audience.
Okay, great. So next week...
Warrior.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed The Truman Show. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, or if you rather just listen to our voices. We will have a Season 5 logo. Our buddy Alex Horton, I will put a link to his YouTube channel. I know we've talked about him a lot.
He's been on the show a few times.
He's been on the show. We've done projects with him. He's going to be helping us do this. And I think, I haven't mentioned this to you, but I think we may do like a little contest thing. If you can guess what movie that we're recreating once we release the image. We can't give you money.
We don't have any money.
But we'll shout you out on the podcast.
He has holes in his shirt. We can't afford... We can't afford things, guys.
I'm living off of beans.
He is. I'm fine. But he's living off of beans, and I refuse to help him. So.
But anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next week.